Our story begins in Lima, capital of Peru. The day I picked to arrive, saw this road running event taking place, which of course totally beggared up the traffic flow, and trying to get into the city was nigh impossible. We finally arrived at the Plaza de Armas, or main square, which most Spanish towns have. They're generally bordered by a church, government offices, law courts, and a palace. The square dates back to the mid-1500s. The Archbishop's Palace boasts these beautiful wooden balconies. And now we drive through some of the poorer parts of town to visit a small market. I caught these locals having lunch. This is the little-known Museo de los Descalzos, literally meaning Museum of the Shoeless Ones. It was an old Franciscan convent, and the chapel boasts an incredible gold-covered altar. These clever Franciscans even had their own winery. Back to the hotel to meet up with the tour group. Jose, our guide for the trip.
Carsten Dusted from Denmark.
Hi, I'm Michael Meyer from Germany.
I'm Eleanor from Germany, and I'm the wife of Michael.
Gary from Canada.
I'm Sandy. I'm married to Gary. I'm also from Vernon, British Columbia.
I'm Lister from the great country of Australia.
And yours truly, Mike Reynolds from Cape Town, South Africa. Then it was off to the bus station for the first leg of our journey, down the coast towards Pisco, the home of the national drink, the Pisco Sour. I was hoping for some chickens on the roof, but no luck. Apparently the poor get given small plots of land way out here and must build on them within a certain time or lose them, so they erect these little homes. We're on the Pan-American Highway, which runs right down the arid west coast of South America. There's the odd little town, and as we get nearer to Pisco, despite the aridity of the land, there's signs of agriculture, watered by centuries-old systems of irrigation. This is Paracas, a little port near Pisco, virtually destroyed in the earthquakes which rocked the area in 2007, killing hundreds of people. The rubble of the adobe homes which collapsed still line the roads. We book in and walk across the road to our rooms. Stark, but comfortable enough. 2 beds, the loo, and the bucket. Supper with a view. The next morning, early, we set off for the Ballestas Islands, about a 20-minute boat ride off the coast. Passing the candelabra geoglyph on the way. No one knows its significance, but some say it was a navigational aid. The islands are a series of rugged arches and caves. They provide shelter for literally thousands upon thousands of marine birds, boobies, penguins, pelicans, and sea lions. Just look above the boats on the right. Birds in the air as far as the eye can see. Remains of the 19th century guano factory are still evident. On now, down the coast to Ica, Peru's premier wine center. Some of the vineyards are over 600 years old. We visit this little wine farm which still farms with all the old manual methods.
In this city, always the same. It's very hot, but in summer it's too hot, 38, 40 degrees. In this case, our fruits or the grapes are very, very sweet. Perfect for to make Pisco, our national brandy, or for to make sweet wines. But no, it's so good for to make dry wines. Okay. Inside the pipe, inside the spiral, you know, it's a moonshine.
Apparently only true Pisco bubbles in a vortex like this when shaken. Our friend here is going to show us how to mix a Pisco Sour.
This Pisco Sour, the ingredients is Pisco, sugar, lemon, ice, cube, and egg white. Yes? All these is shake in the cup. Sí, luego, okay. Okay, please. Salud.
A few kilometers south of Ica, nestled in the dunes, is the Wakachina oasis. People come to picnic, swim, chill out, and ride the dunes like a giant roller coaster in one of these beasts which have huge engines that throb like a camel on heat and have the power of a Saturn V rocket. Thank heavens we stopped to take pictures against the backdrop of a beautiful desert landscape.
Not yet.
1, 2, 3, jump! Yoo-hoo! Got it! It's gonna be like your brakes.
Carsten and Jose tackle the sandy slopes on sandboards. Just the walk back up was enough to put me off, believe me. We leave Ica and the dunes and continue south towards Nazca, where we hope to fly over the famous and mysterious Nazca lines, etched into the desert thousands of years ago. On the way, we pass through some magnificent countryside, dotted with little villages. Near Nazca, we climbed this viewing tower to catch our first glimpse of the lines. The town itself is really third world. But the main square is a pleasant enough place for the locals to gather and chat. Nazca by night. The police are celebrating the anniversary of their formation in Peru with this parade. Great band. Then 4 of us crammed into this little taxi and headed for our hotel. This is the road to the hotel.
In this case, the hotels we are.
Another police celebration was in full swing at the hotel. Are we in China or Peru? Another beautiful day dawns, and actually the hotel is not so bad, and has spectacular views of the countryside. We braved the road back to town, passing this very poor area, and on to the Chowchilla Cemetery, full of graves dating back to around 1200 AD. Strangely enough, it was discovered only 50 years ago.
How big is it? 1 kilometer long and 250 meters wide.
They found mummies scattered across the site, courtesy of tomb raiders, who fleeced the bodies and discarded textile scraps, bones and carcasses in the desert. There are hundreds of tombs in the area, but only 12 have been restored, a few of which I'm showing here. Normally, the mummies would have been well preserved, but exposure to the elements destroyed the skin. On the way to the airport, we have a brief look at how this local man still makes pottery the old way.
Olín amarillo.
Yellow calcium.
Óxido de hierro.
Iron oxide purple. Polished human baby hairs.
Nazca Airport was buzzing, full of tourists wanting to see the mysterious geoglyphs etched into the desert around the time of Christ. It never rains on the Peruvian coast, which is why these remarkable lines have survived for centuries, preserving the secrets of an ancient culture. It's quite fascinating how they've remained visible these thousands of years. Who made them and why? They remain one of the world's great archaeological mysteries. That evening, we left on the overnight bus for Arequipa, which is nearly 2,500 meters above sea level. Basking in the shadow of the snow-capped Chachani, Misty and Pichu Pichu volcanoes, Arequipa is built almost entirely from silla, a white volcanic rock, hence its nickname, the White City. We booked into our little hotel and went exploring. The rooftop had a great breakfast area with stunning views of Chachani. Our next priority was to get some washing done before heading into town. They go by weight and it's not expensive. Arequipa's Plaza de Armas, or Town Square. They're all such lovely places to meet Why don't we have them here? Then we're off to the market. A huge building with literally hundreds of stalls, selling everything from flowers to bull's testicles.
The penis of the dog. I'm glad that it's not mine. It's lying there. About 4,000 varieties of potatoes.
Yeah.
After the market, we drove up this beautiful valley with Chachani in the background to have lunch at Palomino's.
We're going to try guinea pig for lunch.
Lunch consisted of a good cold beer, then potato pie and a doggy bag for Sandy, and guinea pig for us, either cut up or whole, very bony. Our next leg takes us to canyon country, the Colca Canyon. And as we now go up to serious altitudes, we are taught how to eat coca leaves.
I took 3 coca leaves. You have to break a small piece of the rock. This is ash. And we put on the top.
We're now traveling through La Puna, the highlands of southern Peru, about 10,500 feet. One load that won't be going anywhere fast. No one injured, I hope. Vicuña, reddy brown color. They have the finest, softest wool. Can only be shorn every 3 years and are protected. Alpaca are used as pack animals.
Alright everybody, now we are at 3,900 meters. We're going to order some tea for the altitude.
That's 13,000 feet.
Okay. This is the chachacoma, good for the stomach problem. This is the muña.
Actually, it's quite nice. Piece of cake for a rooibos tea drinker.
Scarlet, yes.
We drive on and stop at the highest point of our trip, about 16,500 feet. This is where tourists make an offering to the gods and build little cairns.
Okay, the cocoa leaves, it will be a nice offerings because the mountains are expecting a present for the tourist. You have to take 2 leaves together like this. It means the king to the offerings to the mountains. If you want, just the best ones. This one. Okay, now the mist is making the offerings to the mountains, taking each leaf, throwing into the wind for the Mother Earth and for the mountain, but the ground. It will be nice offerings to the mountains, which is part of the Andes.
This is a big one that Michael does. Mike certainly has the knack, eh? We drive on and find this shepherd tending her flock. They keep llamas like this one as pets. Further on we come to this unusual area of sort of wetlands, apparently springs. Driving through the extinct Chukuros volcano is sort of eerie. They say it's extinct. More roadside stalls. You can't help stopping to take pics. The dresses are very colourful and the kids very cute.
Tokay, tokay. Sigue.
Our destination lies below, Chivay, capital of the Colca Valley. The town square is much smaller than the bigger cities, but the tuk-tuks are everywhere. And the obligatory marketplace is just round the corner. A dirt road through the hills leads us to our hotel. The hotel has magnificent views from the veranda, but food was more important right then.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Jose was playing with this alpaca, and as they are known to spit, I was really hoping for some action. Sadly, nothing. Just make yourself at home, why don't you? Hey, careful. Graham and I go walk about and see some of the locals at work. It really must be a hard life. That evening, this old chap brings out his guitar and I thought, right, now I can really video some local colour and sound. Yeah, well, it wasn't to be. So we went to a local restaurant and they did much better. These terraces were built by the locals over 2,000 years ago. They are everywhere. We're driving along the Colca Canyon, which reaches depths of 11,000 feet in places. La Cruz del Condor, located on the canyon's highest point. This is the best spot to view the majestic soaring condors. Isn't that magnificent? Then we walk along a path on the rim of the canyon. The scenery is spectacular. Onward now to Puno and Lake Titicaca, situated at 12,500 feet. Another roadside stop, but the guys are now looking for alpaca garments. And babies, it seems. Puno, situated on the edge of Lake Titicaca. We drive through the narrow streets to find our hotel, drop off the bags, and go exploring. This parade had something to do with the local banks.
I have just walked from down there up here at 12,500 feet. Let me tell you, it's very slow, I'm lightheaded, and I'm battling to breathe.
Nearby, the kids were playing on this big slide. Of course, us oldies couldn't resist the temptation. That evening, it was dinner and a show. Next morning, we were off to visit some of the islands and were taken to the harbour in Peruvian limousines. The race was on.
We shoot into the lead.
Leaving Puno behind us, we head out.
The place where we are going to visit first, it is, Taquile Island.
Gary takes the helm. The locals cling to a traditional way of life, centered around fishing, farming, and weaving. At 12,500 feet, Titicaca is the highest navigable lake in the world. The views are breathtaking. After some pretty heavy going, we arrive at this cute little town at the top. Find a restaurant up here, have lunch, and make our way down near vertically back to the boat. We head for Lukina, where we're spending the night with the locals. We meet our hosts, split up, and get taken to our respective abodes.
This is our little farmyard.
They're soccer mad, and apparently it's obligatory to have a game with them. The players warm up. Jose getting his gear on. This is really serious. Team photos are taken. Then the game gets going in earnest. Yes, the sun's gone down and they're still playing. Next morning we're up before the sun, walking around the farmyard. The kids appear too. Our very stern-looking hosts. He didn't want to hold it. When we leave the next morning, the locals were already defishing their nets. We say goodbye, speeches and thank yous, and head off to the Euros Islands. The Euros developed their unique floating islands centuries ago to escape hostile cultures on the mainland. They explain to us how they construct the islands. Anchor them to the lake bed and replenish the reeds continuously because they rot from underneath. How do they replenish under the houses? They lift them. It's lovely and soft underfoot, slightly spongy. Most islanders earn a living from fishing, from reed boats of course, and tourism. Can you believe cooking fires are carefully built on a layer of stone? We take our leave from the Euros in a genuine reed catamaran. We travelled through some beautiful countryside on our way north to the historical capital of the Inca Empire, Cusco. From the statue of the White Christ on the hill behind the city, you get good views of the entire area. The Plaza de Armas is lovely. Same peaceful feel as in the other towns. The Incas established Cusco in the mid-1300s and grew the region until in the mid-1500s the warlike Spanish arrived and virtually wiped them out. We took a walk to the market next morning and, lo and behold, I got quite homesick. Then we went off to the touristy areas. I just love this jaywalker dissuader. This wall, once part of an Inca palace, contains the unique 12-sided stone, incredibly hewn to fit exactly in place. We found these fellows hard at work at the Inca Museum. Yes, they have protests too. We visited the alpaca factory shop where they had exquisite jerseys and wall hangings, all made from the finest, softest wool. Oh, but the price. The next morning I got up at about 6 a.m. and walked through the quiet streets with its textures of narrow cobbled stone roads, Spanish lopsided tiled roofs, blue rickety balconies, personal little tucked away squares, old slopey buildings. Fascinating. This is early morning Cusco. That afternoon, we headed out of town to see some Inca ruins, the most important of which was Sacsayhuaman. This was an Inca fortress, but sadly, around 1536, the Incas were slaughtered here by the Spaniards, who tore down many of the walls and used much of the stone to build their churches and other structures in Cusco. Some of these stones weigh as much as 350 tons, and yet they shaped them and fitted them perfectly in position. On the way to the sacred valley of the Incas, we stopped to visit the Cacacoya community, started by GAP, our tourist group, for the wives of the Inca trail guides. It provides work opportunities for these rural people who don't really benefit from the thousands of tourists that visit the main tourist attractions. We see how they spin the alpaca wool, how they use the local plants and beetles, which they crush into powder to create the different colored dyes used in the dyeing process. And then weave and knit garments for sale. The young moms also have babies to look after, while the older kids amuse themselves. Not in front of a TV, but in good, clean dirt. They like their maize as well. They sort of toast it in a pot. The kids love it. On now to Pisac, the main town in the Sacred Valley. And it's market day. Look at the colours. This was undoubtedly a key area for the Incas, as its climate and fertile soils are a rare and fruitful combination for the high Andes. The incredible terraces stretch up to the tops of the mountains, where they built storehouses and forts. Looking down at the valley from up here is awesomely spectacular, and a camera just can't do it justice. Ollantaytambo lies nestled in the mountains at 9,000 feet. It was established in the 1400s and is described as a living Inca town. My favorite place in Peru. It's hugely picturesque and almost like a Hollywood set, except it's real. During the Inca Empire, it was the royal estate of Emperor Pachacuti, and today is one of the starting points of the Inca Trail. In the mountain behind the town are the remains of an Inca fort. It's early morning and the locals are setting up their stalls in a little square behind the town. And although it's for the tourists, the setting makes it feel as if you've been transported back to a time when there weren't tourists. Behind the square, the Incas built a fortress on the side of the mountain, the terraces acting as protection against invaders. We, of course, are going to climb up there. And climb we did, and inspected the ruins. The alternate route down was as scary as it was picturesque. The excitement mounts as we head off to catch the train which follows the Urubamba River to Aguas Calientas, the town just below Machu Picchu. The scenery on the way was awesome. Hikers starting the Inca Trail. And we arrive in Aguas Calientas, which is a much more modern town, possibly because of the tourists.
Happy hour in Aguas Calientas. Pisco Sours lined up.
It didn't take Graham and I long to climb into the Pisco Sours. Now check this out. The main restaurants have the railway line running literally a few feet from the tables. And a local band supplies the music to set the scene. How can one sit back and not have a beer? It's about 5:30 in the morning, and we're in a bus headed up the winding road through the mysterious, dark, cloud-shrouded mountains. Nothing really prepares you for that first glimpse of Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Incas.
I want to say, my friends, welcome to Machu Picchu. Welcome to this magic place.
It's situated at 8,000 feet on a high ridge above the Urubamba Valley and surrounded by shadowy monolithic mountains. Really awesome. Archaeologists believe that Machu Picchu was built during the 1400s as an estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, but abandoned around 1500 at the time of the Spanish conquest. Since this site was never known to the Spanish, it remained relatively intact. It was unknown to the outside world until, in 1911, local tribesmen showed an American explorer, Hiram Bingham, its location. Food was not a problem, as once again the Incas built these incredible terraces on which to plant crops. In 2007, Machu Picchu was voted as one of the new 7 wonders of the world. We're on the last leg of our holiday now, as we fly from Cusco to Puerto Maldonado, deep in the Amazon basin. A bus takes us through the jungle to the Tampapata River. It's really heavy going. Lunch consists of savory rice bound in a banana leaf. We're heading 2 hours upstream to the Posada Lodge, and there's quite a bit of traffic on the river. On the way, we pass these macaws, eating the clay from a clay lick. It's a bit of a hike through the jungle, but we finally make it to the lodge and get a welcome drink and warm towel. Just the thing. The bedrooms are great, all bamboo, grass, and open to the elements. Needless to say, copious amounts of beer were consumed here. They then took us to this 30-meter high tower, from which you can survey what's going on up in the treetops. We pass the erotic palm. Wonder why they call it that. At 5:30 the next morning, we're on the go again, off upstream to a small inland lake. We hope to see caimans and other indigenous species here, and fish for piranha. Is this a caiman or a log?
Try it. Yellow piranha.
Not sure this piranha will do too much damage. It's got a few teeth though.
Big mouth.
That afternoon, we head for the hide overlooking that clay lick we passed. Later, we visited a shaman and learned how to use plants to cure all.
People use for cough and flu again.
Kan inte bli sämre ihåg det, så är det som jag gör.
I can see something.
Cheers guys! Arriba! Arriba! Abajo! Centro!
Cheers all, and thank you all for a fascinating 3 weeks.